Well, Zimbabwe has been through its most difficult week, perhaps since the post-electoral violence we saw in August last year. Now, on the 12th of January, President Mnangagwa announced a hefty hike in the price of fuel. This angered the citizenry, and a 3-day stay away from work was called for by the Zimbabwean Congress of Trade Unions. Violent protests broke out and confrontations with the police and army saw the loss of life. The government launched a major crackdown on dissent, including the shutdown of the internet. Temba Mliswa is the only independent MP in the country's parliament, and he joins me now to share perspective on the situation in Zimbabwe. Good afternoon and welcome to the SABC News Desk. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Well, you saw there from our clip before, and throughout the week we've had distressing images come out of Zimbabwe, and this huge information gap also makes it difficult for us to actually say what's happening on the ground. Can you tell us what the situation is inside Zimbabwe at this juncture?
I liked your introduction, information gap, certainly, and I'm here to clarify that.
All right.
As a legislator. First of all, it's not a secret that Zimbabwe is going through an economic hardship, which really emanates from the former rule of the former president, Robert Mugabe. So there are legacy issues going into that. The aspect of corruption was topical during that time. And I think in the new dispensation with President Mnangagwa, it is important to arrest the aspect of corruption. Without arresting it, then you go to the economic challenges which are there, which have resulted in the situation that we are in. First of all, the price of fuel in Zimbabwe, because the RTGS system, because of the multi-currency we have, was not matching the price in dollar. It was now 25 to 30 cents, which meant that anybody, even some of the countries within the SADC region surrounding Zimbabwe, could come and buy fuel for 25, 30 cents, yet landed through Beira is probably 72 cents. So you could see that a lot of fuel was leaving the country. Okay, and in leaving the country, it creates a shortage because whoever is buying fuel at 25, 30 cents is making money from that. The government certainly did not take the necessary steps to ensure that they protect that from the citizens. Then they go to raise the price so that there can be stability, because fuel is a critical factor in stabilizing the price. But they did not increase the salary of the workers, which is important, because you increase the salary of fuel, there is no increment in the salary of workers. Then there's no dollar power or any currency to match that. And the civil servants have been going through a tough time. As a result, how then do they buy fuel when it has gone up? I think there was supposed to be a total package announced by the president in ensuring that once the fuel goes up, the civil servants' salary will go up as well, so that there isn't much agony from the people. But what we must also look at is the rule of law. The citizens too must respect the constitution. They are allowed to peaceful demonstration. But what we must ask ourselves, what's going on in Zimbabwe? Is it a peaceful demonstration? Because the current regime has allowed peaceful demonstration to happen.
Yes.
But now you have people looting.
Yes. Just on that point, Mr. Mliswa, just yesterday, the Zimbabwean human rights group NGO Forum published those consolidated statistics, and they've cited 844 human rights violations. Those include 12 killings as well. What is your take on this disproportionate use of force that we're seeing playing out in Zimbabwe right now, and how widespread is it?
What we've got to ask ourselves is that who is doing it? The citizens themselves have got guns. The police have got guns lawfully. The soldiers have. You now have a situation where a demonstration, which is not permitted in terms of the law, becomes dangerous, in that you don't know who to then say. Because when these demonstrations happened, we saw civilians with guns shooting. Okay, then the police had to come in, because the police are there to restore law and order, and we must understand that. I don't think there's anybody who wants to be in a country where there's anarchy, where there's no rule of law, and you allow people to go looting. Pick and pay, okay, bazaars, shops were being looted. Is that a demonstration? So there's a criminal element, and once there's a criminal element, you are then inviting the law enforcement agents to come in and protect property, which is constitutional as well. You had old mothers who look after orphans, their food being taken away. You had cars being bent down. What has that got to do with an ordinary citizen when the prices go up? Is it the fault of the ordinary citizen, or it is the government that needs to be engaged in such an approach? Zimbabweans are educated people. And as legislator, I'm embarrassed. I've actually said their behavior was barbaric. We behaved worse than baboons, yet we're educated. Baboons behave better, because why would you go to somebody's house and loot? Why would you go into a shop and loot? Is that a demonstration, or it's criminal? So there's the aspect of criminal, and there's the aspect of the demonstration. But the demonstration has got to be okayed by the law enforcement agents in the country. And demonstrations have been peaceful.
All right, I want to talk about Pastor Evan Mawarire, one of the activists arrested for inciting violence. Now, are dissenting voices, to what extent are they still allowed in Zimbabwe? And what kind of impact this move to clamp down on social media, what kind of impact will this have on public consciousness? Will it not serve to galvanize protests even more in the public sphere?
What we've got to ourselves, do we want a Zimbabwe which has no rule of law, where everybody comes in and they do what they want, or we have a constitution that must be seen to be enforced by the citizens and by the law enforcement agents, by us parliamentarians too? Once you have a constitution, we've got to ask ourselves, are we abiding by the constitution or not, which is constitutional? There is the aspect of freedom of association.
And expression, do you feel you're abiding by that one?
I think for the first time in Zimbabwe, they've enjoyed more freedom than ever before. I think they're still, I think there's a hangover since the former President Mugabe left, because you could not do this with the former President Mugabe. And the new president, credit must be given to him, has opened up the democratic space. But how can you invest in a country where there's no rule of law, where the citizens think that they can just take up arms, they can go into shops and loot? The economy will not grow. So we certainly have, and I don't think Zimbabweans have the capacity to do this. I must say this as a legislator, but there's a third arm involved. There's a third force involved with this, which is the capacity. Zimbabweans, being Zimbabweans that I know, that I represent, have no capacity whatsoever to do this. And there is a lot of distortion. Okay, there was unhappiness in the elections which happened, and I think we don't need to now more or less come up with.
But how will shutting down social media and shutting down the internet help the cause of Zimbabweans going forward?
I think, to me, you've got to understand the state is responsible for certain things. Is it constitutional, first of all? If it is constitutional, then yes, they have the right. The state is powerful. And if they think that there are certain things which are creating problems in the country, it is up to them to use the constitutional provisions which are there. The question is that, is this constitutional? If it is, then so be it. Who controls the information in the country? Okay. For me, let's not argue so much about whether it's right or wrong. Is it constitutionally correct? Because that is what guides us at the end of the day.
So you feel the steps taken to shut down the internet and clamp down on social media will stand up to constitutional scrutiny? Is that what you're saying?
To me, I think Parliament must. We've adjourned. I would want to see Parliament being in session so that we debate these issues and see that what is happening, is it constitutional or not? We represent people. For now, for as long as Parliament is not in session, there's no one who can say much. We are there to protect the citizens of Zimbabwe.
All right, questions arising now around President Mnangagwa's judgment on this one. He left the country shortly after making this announcement. And look, there was a lot of optimism, albeit cautious optimism, when he took the helm and rose to the highest office in the land. What do you think this decision he made on this fuel announcement, what impact will this have on the public consciousness regarding confidence in his leadership going forward?
I totally agree with you. Comrade Mnangagwa was elected constitutionally and is a 5-year term, and he's not even done his first year. So to me, a man is judged after 5 years, and those who voted for him must be able to judge after 5 years whether he's done the correct thing, and if it's not, then they have a say in the ballot box. I still go to the constitutional issues which are there. If this decision that is made is wrong, that will be decided by the electorate in the ballot. So what they must do is write everything down, the good and the bad he's doing, and come election day, you have your say to say, did he serve us properly or not? And I think, to me, that's what is important at the end of the day. He's the head of state.
What do you feel outside powers should be doing right now when it comes to developments unfolding in Zim? reform clearly, obviously, is needed. But who do you think has the leverage to nudge Zimbabwe in the right direction? And because we saw SADC didn't immediately respond, and then international reaction has been somewhat muted. Would you like to see a more robust response from the region and from the international front as well on this one, Mr. Mliswa?
Not at all. Zimbabwe is capable of dealing with some affairs. We are very educated, and probably most educated in the SADC region. So why would you want anybody to interfere in our affairs? There is Brexit in the UK. Who's interfering? The American government is on a shutdown. Who's interfering? So why do you think that people must interfere into the affairs of Zimbabwe? We have a parliament. We have the three arms of the state which are there. We are more than capable of dealing with our problems. But what we don't want is interference coming in and encouraging looting to happen. This is what I say to everybody. Everybody has an agenda. And I think it is important that they respect the Constitution of Zimbabwe. We are a sovereign nation. We've never interfered. I don't even expect SADC to say anything. I actually saw that the ANC are about to say something. I don't think they need to really interfere with Zimbabwe right now. They have more wars themselves. They must deal with the land issue here, which we've already dealt with. If there's anything, they have a lot more to learn from us.
But we are neighbors. I'm sure the concern is valid and understandable.
But then this thing is not out of control. Why is anybody saying it's out of control? Just because of social media, but just because of a lot of things happening. That's why the thing state is taking it upon itself to think close down social media, because it is misinforming, and we know how dangerous social media is. We all know that. Okay, and to me, if they believe that it is creating this havoc, let people come to Zimbabwe. You've got people demonstrating, blocking people from going to work. This is the other issue. So would you call that a demonstration? It's not a stay away because you're barricading. You're creating violence. Yes. So it's a freedom of association. So a stay away is when
very
people
quickly, we are running out of time. You're off to Davos very soon. How are you going to handle yourself there with everything that's going on in Zimbabwe right now? To be a true story. I'm going to Davos
on my own accord to go and set the record straight that Zimbabwe is truly ready for business, and we're a constitutionally constituted country. We're a sovereign country, and we have the resources, and people must come and do business in Zimbabwe. Along the way, they must rely on the three pillars of the state. There's parliament, there's the judiciary, and there's executive to be able to discharge its duties. I'll always have national interests at heart. While I accept that the people must demonstrate, but peacefully within the constitution. But I also don't accept criminals who will kill. A good example before we close, that you report to the police that there's a criminal in your yard. The police come and shoot him. Okay? Is that wrong for the police to do that? That's a question that I leave for everyone.
All right. Temba Mliswa, thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk. We do appreciate you sharing your invaluable insights with us this afternoon. We do wish you well in Davos. I know you don't have an easy task on your hand, but I do hope you accomplish what you set out to do.
Thank you very much.